This story is proof that love without clarity wastes lives. By the time Sophie realized Ethan was never going to marry her, she had already spent 7 years waiting for him. 7 years of late-night phone calls, emotional sacrifices, and defending him whenever people questioned his intentions. The painful part was not that she loved him deeply. The painful part was that she truly believed he loved her the same way. Sophie met Ethan during their final year at university in London. Ethan was the kind of man who made people feel comfortable instantly. He listened carefully, remembered small details, and spoke about the future with confidence. Their friendship slowly turned into a relationship, and before long, Sophie built her entire emotional world around him. They talked constantly about marriage, children, and the life they wanted to create together. To Sophie, their future already felt real. Then Ethan received a major career opportunity in New York City. It was the kind of opportunity people dream about, and Sophie supported him completely. Before leaving, Ethan promised the distance would only last 2 years. He told her he wanted to establish himself first so he could give them a better future. Standing at the airport, he looked into her eyes and said, "Wait for me." And she did. The first year of long distance felt manageable. They called every day, he sent flowers occasionally, they watched movies together online and talked for hours about the future. Sophie ignored the loneliness because she believed sacrifice was part of real love. Whenever her friends questioned whether the relationship could survive the distance, she defended Ethan proudly. She trusted him completely. But slowly, things started changing. The calls became shorter. The replies became colder. Sometimes Ethan disappeared for entire weekends, claiming work pressure and exhaustion. Sophie noticed the emotional distance growing, but every time she tried to express her concerns, Ethan always had the perfect explanation. He told her he was stressed. He reminded her how hard he was working for their future. Somehow, every conversation ended with Sophie apologizing for needing reassurance. Years passed faster than she expected. 2 years became 4, 4 became 6. Her friends got engaged, married, and started families. Meanwhile, Sophie remained emotionally stuck in the same place, still waiting for a man who kept promising her soon. Family gatherings became uncomfortable because everyone kept asking the same question. So when is Ethan finally coming back? Sophie always smiled and gave hopeful answers she no longer fully believed herself. Deep down, fear had already started growing inside her. Not fear of losing Ethan, but fear that she was wasting years of her life waiting for someone who was never truly choosing her. One evening, her older sister sat beside her and asked quietly, "Do you honestly think he still plans to marry you?" Sophie became defensive immediately. She insisted Ethan loved her and was simply focused on building stability first. But after the conversation ended, she sat alone, wondering why a man who supposedly loved her deeply could leave her uncertain for so many years. Then, finally, after 7 years abroad, Ethan announced he was returning to United Kingdom. Sophie felt hope rush back into her life instantly. Suddenly, all the waiting seemed worth it. She imagined a proposal at the airport. She imagined introducing him proudly as her husband. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe their story was finally reaching its happy ending. On the day of his arrival, Sophie got dressed carefully and drove to the airport carrying flowers in her hands. Her heart raced as passengers slowly walked out through the terminal doors. Then she saw him. Ethan was smiling. But he was not alone. Beside him stood a woman holding his hand. At first, Sophie assumed it was a coworker or friend. Then she noticed the wedding ring. Everything inside her froze. The woman smiled politely and asked Ethan if Sophie was one of his old university friends. Friends. After 7 years of emotional loyalty, sacrifice, and waiting, that was all she had become. Ethan quickly pulled Sophie aside, panic written across his face. And then he admitted the truth. He had gotten married 3 years earlier. 3 years. Which meant while Sophie was defending him, praying for him, and building her entire future around him, he had already built a life with someone else. Sophie could barely breathe. Her voice shook as she asked the only question her heart could form. What about me? Ethan looked down and quietly replied, I didn't know how to tell you. That sentence destroyed something inside her permanently, because it revealed a painful truth about people. Some individuals will accept your loyalty, your patience, and your love, while knowing fully well they have no intention of choosing you in the end. Instead of giving honesty, they give false hope, because honesty would cost them the comfort of keeping you emotionally available. For weeks after that day, Sophie barely recognized herself. She stopped enjoying conversations. Sleep became difficult. Some nights, she replayed every memory in her mind, trying to figure out where everything changed. But eventually, she realized the hardest part was not losing Ethan. The hardest part was accepting that she had spent years loving promises instead of reality. Months later, Ethan started contacting her again. Long apologies, missed calls, emotional messages claiming he was unhappy. He told her nobody understood him the way she did. He admitted marrying the other woman had been a mistake. But by then, something inside Sophie had changed. Pain had taught her a lesson love alone never could. She finally understood that when someone truly loves you, clarity does not scare them. A person who genuinely wants you will not keep you emotionally suspended for years while asking for endless patience. Real love brings security, not confusion. One evening, Sophie sent Ethan one final message. I loved you honestly, but I should have loved myself more. Then she blocked him everywhere and began rebuilding her life. Years later, Sophie eventually met someone new. He was not exceptionally wealthy or overly charming, but unlike Ethan, his actions matched his words. Commitment came naturally to him. He never left her questioning where she stood in his life. And for the first time in years, love stopped feeling painful. Because the truth is, love without clarity wastes lives. And sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is walking away from people who keep asking you to wait while giving you no real reason to believe they are truly choosing you.